Welcome to Forward with NACCE, Inspiring Entrepreneurial Action, a podcast that shares the stories of everyday entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial leaders, and the communities that support us. We hope that this diverse collection of stories brings you inspiration, inspires you to take action, and ignites entrepreneurship in your community as we make our way forward together.
Welcome to this episode of Forward with NACCE. I am very happy to have two guests with me today from Cary, North Carolina, which is also the home of the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, NACCE, our home and our headquarters, where Natalia Berezhna, our producer, and I work from. So welcome today. We actually have a father-son duo. So I had asked the father by the name of Vinny who should go first. So he wanted his son Caleb to go first, and I'm looking at them right now. I had a chance to meet them at a local chamber meeting, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So Caleb, welcome to our program. Would you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background and maybe an experience or a person that shaped you on the career path that you're on today?
Yes, so my name is Caleb, and I'm currently the manager here at Contender Esports as well as one of the owners. And my background, I grew up playing traditional sports and video games as well. And back then, I wasn't aware that there was actually a pathway to video games. I would say video games were more fun than traditional sports. But since I couldn't got anywhere with traditional sports, I decided to go on, or got anywhere with video games, I decided to go on the path of traditional sports. And soccer was my favorite sport. I played that. And after graduating high school, I went overseas to Germany and played soccer there for a few years. And then I'd always wanted to start a business. I was brought up, my dad had me read Rich Dad Poor Dad at a young age. And so I was brought up in the entrepreneurship path and thought process. And so I knew I was going to start a business, wasn't exactly 100% sure of what. I know I told people I was going to create some awesome video game. Didn't do that, went on the esports path, which I really like because I'm a competitive person, like the competitive aspects, the training aspects of esports and gaming. And when starting this, I really looked at traditional sports. It was like, what makes it so special and unique? And think about the path to collegiate, path to professional, and as well as how great it was for youth development, teaching teamwork, sportsmanship, integrity, and other life skills. And that really became the focus and mission as I started on my entrepreneurial journey.
Caleb, that's great. And I think just to have that experience of living in another country and playing, sports with people that are not, from the United States, probably from other parts of the world. So it sounds like from what you're saying, your dad, Vinny, was very supportive in what you're doing. And that's really wonderful to hear. And so Vinny, I would love for you to talk a little bit about, what in your life shaped you to have sort of that entrepreneurial spirit and some of the values that certainly are reflected through your son. And I know you're very proud of him. So just share with us a bit.
Sure, I sure will. And I also wanted to share from the same, I grew up playing video games as well. And I was also an athlete. And my early start playing video games, it created a desire and just a quest for me to figure out and see how are these games made and designed. And so then I started learning how to program at a young age. And then fast forward many years from there, I went to the Naval Academy and played football at the Naval Academy. I always remember that I wanted to major in computer science. But the academic and athletic department, they had suggested that I not pick that major because it was a very challenging major for an athlete challenging major for an athlete to take while having to play sports. So, but because of that young upbringing with the video games, I still just said, you know what, this is what I want to do, and I went after my passion and majored in computer science and graduated with a computer science degree. And so, and the reason why I say that part is because a lot of what we do is about the educational video gaming, and this is how it can really start at a young age, and there's so many different pathways that you can take it. As far as from the entrepreneurial spirit, it really just basically stemmed from both my parents had an entrepreneurial spirit. My mom, she had a business. She called it Cakes for All Occasions, and she would bake anything from birthday cakes to wedding cakes. My dad was a trained police officer, and when he retired, he started his own landscaping business. So I guess that was kind of the first that I entrepreneurial type of that background that I had was watching them, and then also helping my dad a little bit within his business when growing up. And then that takes us to where we are now. And when Caleb mentioned to me, I think sometime in 2018, about esports, and that he really wanted to get into and wanted to find a way to get into esports, that's when we started looking at different opportunities and ways in which we could start a business.
Yeah, that's great. And your experience, it reminds me of a lot of the research about entrepreneurs, and we see a lot of it is generational. And you talk about your parents, Caleb's grandparents, and kind of finding your passion, right? And then finding a place for that, solving the problem, and coming up with a customer. Caleb, when you mentioned one thing about integrity, I thought that was very important, because I think that's really where, when we see the growth of businesses and who do people want to do business with. One of our fellow chamber members of the Cary Chamber, Wendy Coulter, wrote an article recently about how people like to do business with those that they know, they like, and they trust. And when I think about the trust aspect, that is really wonderful, that at such a young age that you really embrace that. And certainly you got that from your parents. I want to dig a little bit into your business model, because I think that might be interesting for people. Gaming is fun, and connecting education to it, so that people are not only having fun video gaming, but they're learning certain skills. And maybe Caleb, I'll start with you, and then if any you want to expand on it a bit. Talk to us about your business model. Who are the customers? How do people find out about you? How do you guys make money? How do you serve your customers?
Absolutely. So we are on a mission, and that mission is to be of service to the youth by destigmatizing gaming and creating healthy outlets. And then we really dive in and focus on the building character and life skills through productive video gaming. And by productive, we mean teaching them, because when you hear about all the common aspects that people hate about video games, you're sitting down, looking at a screen, you don't eat or drink anything, and there's a common stigma of, oh, gaming is, they're going to end up being 30 years old, living in our basement, eating potato chips and drinking energy drinks all day, which is not true and not the case. And what we really like to use within gaming is we teach them take the breaks, bring a water bottle, drink water during the proper stretches, to keep their bodies healthy, and have them move around, do some jumping jacks or push-ups in between during practice. And so then that we teach them, and they get in the habit of that. And then even though we're working with the youth, which is mostly elementary and middle schoolers, the parent ideally is our customer, because they're the ones who hear about us, they are the ones who sign their kids up, and then it's about all the kids will say, "Oh, we love it. It was a great experience," and then they keep them coming back because that's what they enjoy doing. It's a great influence for them, and that's where the whole business model is made up off of.
So the
And
kids are like the sales force, right? You get the
they are.
parents. Okay, I love it. That's great.
Yes. And we do a lot of STEM. So within esports, there is a competitive video gaming side, but there's also the esports education side. And it's a
Mhm.
lot of STEM based, because we use the gaming because they kind of thing meet them where they're at. So they already enjoy playing video games. And we take that when they're in our facility, they'll ask, well, why does every single PC look the same? And we explain what a server is, how everything's backed up. They'll ask, how do you not get hacked? And we explain what a firewall is, talk more about
Mhm.
cybersecurity. So it brings up those questions. And then we said, well, do you want to learn how to make optimize your PC for the best performance? So we teach them about PC building. So all they're doing is playing games and having fun. And by playing games, they're games that can teach engineering and PC building and all that. They're just playing games and having fun. And then, but secretly, they're learning all these different skills so that they can actually take interest in it and look for a career pathway because there's so many job openings. There's going to be even more in the future, and the tech industry and segments such as robotics, AI, and more are on the rise. And someone needs to create this future workforce, and we have to get kids really interested in this. So it's not just the doctor, lawyer, and nurse, the medical field, and the traditional career pathways. That actually exploring these new, innovative, up and coming career pathways.
That is great. I just actually got back from Washington, D.C. last night, and we were part of this legislative summit and talking with community college presidents and trustees all over the country. And workforce was like the number one thing. And they were talking about, cybersecurity and all of these emerging fields and how different it is that, probably Vinny, back when you and I were college students, it was more like you had to go through a traditional path. And our parents, or at least my parents, told me, if you don't get a bachelor's degree, that's it. And the world is very different now. I think where NACCE's headquarters are, we lease space from Wake Tech, which is a wonderful community college here, one of the top in the nation, but certainly one of the most robust in North Carolina. Do you find that you get students from this area? Because I know some, even high school students are taking colleges at community college. Do you guys have like a relationship there?
So as far as we do have some with colleges and high schools, being Wake Tech is a you know public college, there's a lot of red tape and people you have to go through for things like that. And we are working with some other schools, not community colleges, but that are private colleges, and those are much easier because we don't have to go through as many people with them. But we do offer employment and internships. At one point we've probably employed about 8 people that have been students at Wake Tech, and they get to come in, get experience, and the internships as well. People getting to come in because one common thing that was said is that there aren't a lot of internship opportunities available, in the entertainment sector, let alone
Mhm.
within esports. We're pretty much the only one. And so we're providing that where they can actually come work in an esports platform and really learn and see. And then one thing people learn is that 90% of what we do is the same as any other business. It's that small 10%, which is really the focused on the esports, and the other 90% is mostly focused on business and running that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, just, the business side, learning about, budgeting and cash flow and, tell us a little bit about how you both made your way through the pandemic when things shut down. How did that impact your business? Did you all remain open, or did you pivot to some other kind of delivery model?
Well, we didn't open until October of 2020. And so that was very good that we weren't open before because we were actually set originally to open in March of 2020, and then there were construction delays. And so
Oh,
then thankfully we got the past all the, like, I believe it was a 5.5 or 6 month shutdown for gyms and entertainment type businesses. So we were able to pass through all that. And then even still opening wasn't easy from the standpoint that we it was very challenging to do any marketing. I mean, there was really nowhere to go. It was challenging to get in touch with anyone. And where I really started to do networking and start the marketing in February of 2020, and then we all know what happened a month later. And so that I would say was the biggest part. There were some flaws in our model that we had to change and fix around. There was because these type of places, gaming centers, it's very common. It's a place where you go and play games. And then we had to really make the transition from that's not what's going to happen here, especially during COVID, and that what we actually really need to focus on the whole youth development aspects and really give people a reason to come. Because when you're shut down for 5 months, everyone has their own system, so then it's not that huge of a reason. But when you say, oh, you come, learn life skills, socialize, get positively influenced, that's something that people come out for.
That makes a lot of sense, and really the messaging and the marketing. So tell us, one of the things we were thinking about as we were preparing for this is, there are family owned and run businesses. So maybe, Vinny, we could start with you. Maybe reflect on or share with our audience how do you and your son kind of interact together with the business? Obviously your family members, but are there other people in the family also that are involved in the business, or is it just the two of you?
So it's mainly just Caleb, myself, that are running the business. When we initially started, Caleb was still in Germany at the time, and this was when. Then it was just a lot of the formation of the company and getting the structure and those types of things. He was here for a little bit of the real estate, and then when he went back to Germany, I continued that on. So we've been a tag team kind of partnership all along, but then once we got into when he's around the February, March time frame, of 2020, when it was time for the build out of the facility, and then a lot of the logistics from there on, as far as getting the internet and those types of things. Then that's when Caleb really became more involved from that standpoint. So now basically how we operate is Caleb takes care of all of the day-to-day operations. I'm more so kind of in the background on the finance side, but we communicate many times during the day via phone and text, just around different ideas, marketing strategy, and things like that. So it's a real enjoyable experience to for me to be able to work with Caleb. It's so interesting, just he has this hunger for learning, and he listens to a lot of podcasts and watches a lot of videos, reads a lot of books on business, and he's always bringing these ideas and bringing and figuring out how he can implement them within the business. And in the model in which he's come up with around this whole educational video game, and everyone that we talk to, they say, "Oh, what a great idea!" And they just think it's fantastic. And like I said, it's his idea that he came up with, and we're really seeing that this is really what it's going to be a big part of the future of education. You mentioned a few things earlier, such as robots and AI, and when you look at just a lot of things that we talked about, cybersecurity, when we think about drones and VR, there's going to be so many opportunities for young people, and we really want to provide this exposure for them. And so this is what he and I continuously talk about, and we continue to look towards the future, and we're saying, okay, how can we really shape the program, and how can we make the program better when we talk about our STEM camps and after school programs. So we spend a lot of time like I said, on the phone together, texting, and then we spend a lot of time meeting together as well. So it's been a real enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that's great. And it's something you can do together. And it sounds like you work very effectively as partners. And, I think as even my own children, get older, you sort of have to shift, right? Because, when your children are young, you're sort of in that supervisory role, I would say, if nothing else. But, the other thing you said, Vinny, that I really resonated is being a lifelong learner, there's so much consumable, really good information out there if you can find it. So, Caleb, I'd like to ask you, your dad mentioned some books and podcasts and so on. Maybe recommend for a few of the people that are listening. We have listeners in 41 countries, 550 American cities. What are some of your favorite authors or podcasters or just sources where you get your information?
Information wise, I know one really good one is Patrick Bet David. He has a YouTube channel called Valuetainment, and he's authored a few books. My favorite one, I believe, was the most recent one called Your Next Five Moves, was a really good one. And then there's a lot of other people. It really depends off of what someone is looking for specifically, as far as entrepreneurship goes. And I was just really find someone that has taken a similar path to what you're looking for. Patrick Bet David, he pretty much revolutionized the insurance industry, and so I'm revolutionized the gaming industry. So I really want to study someone who had revolutionized an industry, and then it could be someone who, if you really like real estate, such as Bobby Kiyosaki or Grant Cardone, since that's what they're really big into. And I say really research and find the specific person, because what works for me isn't necessarily what's going to work for someone else, and everyone learns differently.
Yeah, a book I would recommend to you if you haven't read it is Walter Isaacson, The Innovators. It's really interesting. It's about the history, and I see the two of you really kind of occupying that space of thinking about, what are the careers of the future? How do you get there? How do you provide value, and how do you grow your business? So I think what I would love to hear, and I'm thinking about this with NACCE, because NACCE is an educational nonprofit, but we think very much like a business. We think about how do we provide value to our customers? How do we continue to grow our fan base? Because we don't want just members. Like, we want enthusiastic people that just can't get enough of the content and of the network. So maybe with each of you, you could comment on where you would like to see your company. Remind us the name of it and tell everybody where it is. I know it's not too far from my office, but what is aspirational for you? What does that look like 5 years from now? How do you see your growth? How do you see your impact in the gaming industry and beyond? So, Vinny, maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Caleb to get his thoughts.
Sure. It's kind of interesting when you ask that question, because really, Caleb, he's really the true visionary behind this. But in my perspective on it is, from the educational video game space, we want to create pathways for youth so that they can basically be able to explore and go down whichever career path that they choose. But like I said, really giving that exposure. So just like if you say like in little league sports, when I grew up, I played little league football, played baseball, played basketball, and you kind of figure out which one that you really truly like and that you want to pursue. Like for me, when I played football in college. So in this way, if we can provide and expose young people just to a lot of different areas within gaming or through gaming, and help them to see and then they'll be able to choose paths. And really, in the way that we run our program in this Caleb, which you talked about earlier, is that how the young people, they don't even know that they're learning. They just know that they're having fun. And it's so interesting because when they tell the person, oh, all we do is play games all day. But then Caleb, once he asks them some questions and then start talking about the periodic table and different things, and he's like, oh, so you did learn something. And that's the beauty of what we do. We take something that the young people love, and which is video gaming, and make it into this productive educational pathway. So I just see us reaching as many youth as we possibly can, and helping to with the actually when we were at the last chamber meeting together, and Dr. Rawls was talking about how he feels Wake Tech is a feeder system for companies like Epic. We
That's
see
right.
ourselves as a feeder system to schools like Wake Tech. And so when
Mhm.
we're dealing with the elementary, middle school, and high schools, and they deal, and like Wake Tech deals with the high schools and kind of bring them on, we want to be that feeder system to help this whole esports educational ecosystem. And I really think this is what we're looking to do. I'll say over the next 5 years is to continue to educate the community, because a lot of people still aren't aware of esports and still aren't aware, I mean, as far as parents go, and aren't aware of what what options are out there. If we can continue to educate and to continue to just grow the awareness and then like I say, and bring youth in through our system to create those pathways.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I think sometimes people of like my generation would think of very distinct careers, and sometimes you need someone to frame it out for you. And as we started the conversation, you said, sort of this image of somebody being 30 years old in their parents' basement playing games, but like how can you take that passion for games and turn it into something amazing? So Caleb, why don't you share with us what your vision is? As Vinny said, you're visionary, and you've got a hunger for growing the business in the base. Where do you see yourself and your company in the next 5 years?
Well, being that the triangle is already a phenomenal area and it's just going to continue to grow and get better, with all the companies moving here, and we see as Cary and Raleigh are taken up and companies going to Morrisville and Pittsburgh and Fuquay now. And we really see us be able to expand all over the triangle, have many facilities, ideally one in every municipality, some of them two. And to really be offering what we have, all across the triangle because it's so great, it's so beneficial. These kids love playing video games, and we want to be able to help them do it productively, no matter what their goals are, and so that we're helping keep kids off the street, we're helping keep kids productive and learning, and teaching them great skills because there's a lot of sports options, but then what about for all those kids that aren't interested in sports and music? You know, most of them love video games, and this is a great outlet for them. So that's where we see ourselves 5 years from now. Now, I doubt we'll be in every single municipality within 5 years, but we'll have like a large presence in the triangle and continue to grow and grow from there.
That's excellent. And I was just looking here at Contender Esports Carry. So you operate by these core values: action driven, growth oriented, surpassing goals, innovative learning, developing excellence, and you believe that education can and should be enjoyable. So we are so aligned in that way. And I'm excited about all the success that you've had. And we're also excited about the success of where you're headed. So if people want to learn more about you, if they either are listening in the triangle or they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So our website is contendercare.com. You can reach out through there. We're also available through email. I'm on LinkedIn. Just search Caleb Smith. There's a lot of people with that name, but it, and then we can also be found on social media. So everything is at Contender Carry.
That's great. And we will also have that on the podcast platform so people can get in touch with you. But thank you for sharing your story. It's very inspirational. If there's, parents, whether they're father and son, mother and daughter, whatever, think about a bird in hand asset that you might have, which is somebody who could be a mentor and a partner to you in your business. So we wish our audience a wonderful day. We thank you for tuning in, and we encourage you to follow your dreams. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.